Hey guys, Swati here. In today's episode, we're going to be discussing something very important, something every woman should know. Many women ask me, can I go trekking during my periods? And should I take pills to postpone my periods? Or, what if I'm not prepared for my periods on a trek? So to answer all these questions, we have with us Sandhya. She is a partner at India Hikes. She's been trekking for over 15 years and has had several first-hand experiences. And she's also helped aid other women during their issues. So thank you, Sandhya, for finding time for this.
Thanks, Vati.
So Sandhya, let's dive straight into the topic. The first and biggest question that a lot of trekkers have is, can a woman trek during her periods?
Of course, it's okay. I mean, periods are very normal. People have it in their daily lives, and I think trekking is also okay during periods. So it's no big deal if you are mostly okay in your normal life with periods. Then even on a trek, you'll be fine. So no big worry about that.
Okay, so have you ever trekked with your periods?
Yeah. Both trekking and periods are a part of life. So I really don't think so much about it, and we trek all the time.
So one of the biggest challenges seems to be disposing of used pads. So how do you go about that?
Yeah, pads are a little bit of an issue. See, sanitary napkins are something that we all use, but we also know that it has a lot of plastic in it. Now, what do you do with them once they're soiled? So on a trek, what you do is, first thing, you never leave it on the trek. You don't dispose it off in the waste basket that is there. So you all carry tissue paper. So the dry tissue paper, you wrap your used napkins with a lot of tissue so that it's completely covered, and then carry plastic covers. Put this wrapped stuff inside the plastic cover. You can also use Ziploc pouches. Those prevent smell even more, but even normal plastic covers will do. So once, keep it in a separate place in your bag, and then once you finish your trek and come back to the city, just dispose the entire plastic cover in a bin. That's the easiest thing to do. No smell, no sight.
Now, during your periods, what you have to do is change often. So I've heard that if you don't change often and you don't get to take a bath on a trek, so that could lead to infections. So how do you avoid that?
So now, first thing, on a trek, changing is pretty easy. At the base camps, you have either your rooms or you have tents. Now we'll come to the camps later, but while trekking, so what you do is you go for your nature's call. Similarly, just go behind a bush or behind a tree or behind a rock, change and come out. And once you reach the campsite, again fairly simple. You can ask your tent mates to move out for 10 minutes and then you go in and change. Or you don't want to do that, just go to your toilet tent and change. Carry wet wipes if you want to clean. So that's how you clean up, and then you change. And clean up and change often. That's the best way to remain hygienic and clean.
Okay, so how often do you recommend that people change on a trek?
That totally depends on your flow. On an average, maybe 3 times.
And one of the biggest worries for women, is, even in city life, is staining. So now at home you have many clothes to change, but on a trek you have limited number of clothes. So would you advise women to carry extra clothes just for this?
Now, I wouldn't recommend carrying extra clothes, but I would definitely recommend carry sufficient amount of pads or tampons or whatever you are using, and change often. So ensure that you're changing frequently. That will prevent staining and carrying extra clothes, because extra clothes are a burden on a trek. So carry extra napkins and that should take care of them.
Now that you mentioned tampons, what would you recommend? There are pads, tampons, menstrual cups. So which one of these would you recommend for women?
See, now sanitary napkins or the pads are the most commonly used stuff. I personally would strongly recommend using tampons, because one thing, they're very small. They just are this big. So about 10 tampons are just this much to carry. So in your backpack, they're very, very light and low on volume. So, but one thing you have to be really sure is get used to wearing tampons before you actually go on a trek. A trek is not the place to try.
Yeah.
So get used to it back home and then go on the trek. Tampons also need to be changed less frequently. They are more absorbent than pads.
Okay.
And if you have heavy flow, use a combination of a tampon and a pad. That way you ensure that there's no stain and it is very clean.
So many women don't know when they're going to get their periods, and what if they're not prepared for it? What if they're not carrying pads? What would you suggest they do?
Now, as a woman, I would definitely tell everybody that carry at least 2-3 pads with you so that you are prepared for an emergency. In case that is not the case, you can always walk up to our trek leaders on an India Hikes trek, and they are always geared up with these sanitary napkins and stuff in the first aid kit. Don't feel hesitant that they are men and you're a woman. They are trained to handle these situations. So feel free to walk up to our trek leaders and talk to them about your issue.
Now that we know how to handle periods when we get it on a trek, I want to ask you about the effects that high altitude has on periods. Does it intensify your periods? Does the pain increase, or does your flow increase? How does that work?
Now, according to science, if you are moderately exerting during your periods, it is fine. It actually helps reducing your cramps. So, if you are more or less normal in your everyday life, a trek should not cause much of an issue. You're going to be as you were back in town with a little bit of exercise. But if you back at home, if you have these problems of heavy cramping or very painful periods, then maybe it can become difficult. So, you have to decide where you fall.
Now, many women take pills at the slightest hint of a pain over here in city life, at least. So, they usually pop in painkillers. Is that okay at high altitude? Will it have any adverse effects?
Now, there is no adverse effect just like that, but as you go higher, oxygen gets less and your painkiller may actually mask a headache. So, that's why I would always tell people that before taking a pill, talk to your trek leader, even if it is for cramps. Talk to your trek leader, tell him what you're feeling, and then keep him informed so that he knows that you are taking a pill.
Would you advise trekkers, if they know that they're going to get periods during their trekking dates, would you advise them to take pills to postpone their treks? A lot of trekkers ask this question. So,
see, we all know that periods are a little bit of a nuisance or an irritant on a trek. But do not take pills just for that sake. If you really don't have any issues such as cramps or painful periods, do not take pills. Just go as you are, be normal, think everything is okay. Take pills only if you really have painful periods and you think you cannot trek without them. And that too, I would suggest consult your gynecologist, and only after that go on a hormone pill dose.
Okay, there's this one very interesting question that I came across. Are wild animals lured by the smell of blood? Do you see them often on the trail? How does that work?
Now, first of all, on the trails we go, there aren't wild animals like that. So, do not be afraid of attracting wild animals. They're not there. But just one thing, you be careful. Do not bury or use napkins or tampons, because animals in the night, when we are not, they may get attracted to the smell of blood, and then they may dig it out, which is not something that we want to leave behind. So, do not bury. Get back your napkins or pads or whatever it is, and don't have any other worries about having periods during your treks.
Okay, so we know how to deal with periods when we get them on treks, and the most important part is do not leave it on the slope. Just pack it properly and bring it back down with you, and it's not a big deal. You can do your trek with your periods. It's fine. So if you have any questions, just write to me at trekwithswati@indiahikes.in. Perhaps we can get Sandhya on the next show to answer those questions for you. You can also drop comments and I will surely get back to you. Thank you.